Fantasy Football Show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the People's Poll, the show each and every Monday morning from Planet FPL, where we discuss a topic of your choosing. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Monday the 25th, 6th?
7th.
Is it 27th today?
Yeah, already,
there we go. Nearly the end of January, all over.
A lot of bitches got paid today.
Yes, it's payday. Well, yeah, they might not got paid just yet.
You know what you can spend your money on, don't you?
Yeah, tickets for Planet FPL Live 3. Which is happening on the 22nd of February in Manchester. We'll talk more about that on all of the shows this week. If you're not already following James on Twitter at Planet FPL Pod, do scroll down a little bit in his timeline and you will find links to our live show in Manchester. Getting busy. We sold more tickets over the weekend than I thought we would.
Agreed,
We're pretty much kind of up to nearly 40 people now. So that's only in 3 days. I think we'll easily be up to 70 or 80 by the time the event rolls around. Touch wood, fingers crossed, if you'll come out of your shells and homes and join us in Manchester. What else?
Well, just before we do People's Poll, I think worth saying a quick word on Kobe Bryant.
Helicopter accident.
Terrible
Mad
news, mate. 41 years of age, a sporting icon and a hero to many, obviously, particularly in America. I don't profess to be any sort of basketball expert, but
me neither.
If you say three players for me since I've been alive, you think of him, Shaq, Jordan.
Yeah.
They're the guys, really, aren't they? So
yeah, LeBron more recently, but Kobe's up there as one of the top 10 players of all time or 5 players of all time. It's
terrible news.
Well, top 3, he was third in the all-time point scoring until LeBron took him over about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. But the third highest point scorer, that's like, who's the third highest goal scorer ever in football?
Don't even know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, whoever it would be, I mean, that's the level of
in
caliber
basketball,
of person.
that's got to be a lot of points.
Yeah, tons. His scoring average is maybe 30, 40 points a game. Yeah. So, incredibly sad news to die with his daughter like that. Really, really bad. Yeah, I mean, there's no words for it, is there, really?
No.
So, what do we have on the People's Poll last night? Some interesting options. I noticed the FA Cup replays got a second mention. Not that anyone wants it to be a topic of discussion.
But I attacked it from a different angle because there's been so much about replays. And we are going to talk about this a little bit on the free losing in the vote. We're going to talk a little bit on our live stream tonight on YouTube. But I wanted to attack it from a previous because there was a time when FA Cup replays were endless.
Yep.
Teams could play for 4 times, 5 times. You'd get like 4th round replay happening on quarter-final day and stuff like that. Didn't win the vote. One of the others I put in was about the loan system. Because I think my opinion is at the moment it's being abused from what its original intention was, which was to help lower league clubs, get minutes for younger players. And obviously, I said lower league clubs in terms of making sure they've got bodies quite often as well. Lower league clubs, sort of League 2, League 1, might have 6-7 loans for a season, right?
There's a limit now, isn't there, to only 5 loan players per squad or something
I need
like
to check the ruling a little bit more.
I know, I don't, I'm not...
But you get certain ones like, say, like Spurs very recently with Jedson Fernandez and Giovanni Lo Celso.
Yeah.
I feel like the system's being abused a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's worth a discussion. Winter break, my personal opinion is the way it's been set up is quite farcical. We're now in a situation where Jurgen Klopp is saying that for his replay against Liverpool, not only will none of his first team players play, but he won't even manage the game.
Really?
There was a promise that everybody would have a 2-week winter break.
Yeah.
And those that have drawn in the FA Cup 4th round no longer have one.
You've got 10 days or something now.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal.
No,
but the
point is the point, right?
Well, the point was, it was like, right, don't go and play friendlies, don't do none of this money spending stuff. You are having 2 weeks with no football.
Yep.
Well, you're not, are you? Because Liverpool, Tottenham, and Southampton are now for certainly going to be playing within that period. The winning vote was football's reliance on gambling companies. And we can call it Gamblification, I think, maybe.
Well, yeah, we could. Why do you think it won the vote?
It's a good question. I think it won.
People get to choose what we talk about. I mean,
yeah, I think people are interested in it because there's such an influence in it. Whether you gamble or don't gamble, it's in your face all the time, and that's part of what I want to discuss on this podcast. Yeah. Like at the moment, football doesn't exist without it.
No,
and we might be in a position in a couple of years where football does exist without it, at least to the non-playing gambler. And I spent 11 years within the industry, so I've got some background on it. I don't know if that's influenced the vote, but the majority of our listeners, at some point or another, will have had a bet. And there's probably some people listening who have had issues with gambling, right? I mean, when you get on the bad stage of that, it's a disease, right? Mm-hmm. It's an addiction, no different to drinking, smoking, whatever.
Yep.
It's a disease, and it's one that's very much under talked about. And with clubs trying to do so much within their community at the moment, it's interesting when you look at some of the staggering numbers of how gambling promotion is advertised within our sport, and very much so, particularly within the Premier League.
The thing with, I suppose, technology over time hasn't helped the situation. And what I mean by that is now it's so much quicker and easier for you to place a bet on the football.
Yeah.
It's not for people listening who maybe don't watch as much football. I don't know how many there would be, but you kind of look at and think, okay, gambling's influence within football. You've got shirt sponsorship, advertising hoardings going around, and what have you. But it even goes deeper than that when most YouTube clip pre-roll advertising is Ray Winston and bet whoever he's for. Other gambling companies are available. You've got companies like TalkSport in the middle of commentary because they have got sponsorship saying that, and currently the odds are, it's like mid-commentary. So the infiltration is not just at that surface level advertising, hoarding, shirt sponsorship. It's everywhere to get you to try and place a bet. And I reckon, obviously, there's more people that have placed a bet on football than there is that play FPL, for example. It's a much bigger, wider infiltration into football than something like fantasy football is, for example.
Yeah, some of the numbers that I'd like to go through are a little bit worrying. So the Gambling Commission, who basically, they're the authority of essentially all gambling, if you want to have a license, etc.
Yep.
They reckon in the UK at the moment there are 400,000 people affected by problem gambling. And they anticipate that number is going to rise into the millions in the next couple of years. That's
not necessarily, I'm not counteracting it, but it's not necessarily sports issues. It could be casinos, roulette, all that other kind of stuff, fruit machines and what have you. Yeah. So it's not 400,000 that have football-related gambling problems, but just gambling problems.
No, well, obviously in the high street bookies, anybody who's been into a major high street bookie in the last year or so may have noticed the difference with their FOBTs, the fixed odd betting terminals, where there's been a restriction on bets to a maximum stake of £2 now. That's essentially going to kill any high street bookie, which is not a busy high street bookie, in the next. I think it's a personal opinion that I've held since I started in the industry, which was 2005, that by 2025, there wouldn't be any betting shops left, except for major ones. I'm talking about, maybe one major player in the city centre, or the major ones sort of in the West End.
Yeah, I mean, you can just bet on your phone. No, well,
exactly.
Most people are at that level of understanding a tech that they can whip it out and just place a bet in.
I still get annoyed with the amount of programs that my dad buys. Like in a few years, people won't be printing programs because you'll just be able to electronically download it. Yeah. Newspapers are another case, aren't they? They're going to go out of business eventually. It's handy for people on a commute, but actually, if we get 5G or whatever on the tube or whatever, who needs a free Metro paper or anything anymore? More alarming is the statistic, and this is about a year old, this statistic, that they reckon about, again, it's just under 400,000 people or children between 11 and 16 years old participate in betting at least once a week. That's the scary one.
16?
Between 11 and 16.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Now, I don't know how that happens, because the one thing I can say from my experience in the industry is it is so hot now in terms of
ID verification.
Yeah,
and stuff.
like seriously.
But I think on an app or whatever, you just need a credit card.
If you work in a high street shop and you serve a minor, I'm telling you, the fine is not fun.
No. But online, all you need to do is produce a credit card, and obviously credit cards are not issued to anyone under the age of 18, and as a result, then you can get past it.
Yeah.
Kids these days are clever enough. I'm very tech savvy. My kids still do stuff that I think, like, I don't understand what you are doing, like Minecraft. If anyone can send me an explanation of what Minecraft is, I'll happily accept it. So they're going to get around these kind of loopholes. I wonder how much it plays a part in the revenue of clubs.
As in gambling itself?
Yeah, the sponsorship. And
do you know how many Premier League clubs currently have a gambling company advertised on the front of their shirt?
I would have gone for somewhere between 13 to 15, the majority.
It's 11.
Okay, not far off.
In the Championship, I think it's 17 of 24.
Wow.
What's interesting about that, particularly if you just refer to the Premier League on it, is of the 11, none of those are the so-called Big Six.
Gambling companies.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's actually 11 from the other 14.
Right.
There's a huge difference between what the commonly known Big Six earn in shirt sponsorship compared to the other clubs. So like Leicester City's shirt sponsorship it's about 6 million a year. Mm-hmm. Tottenham, who's the lowest of the Big Six, is 30 million.
Right, okay.
Massive difference. So it feels like these betting companies are targeting those outside. So if you take, like, you've got United with like Chevrolet, Arsenal with Fly Emirates, right? These are major international bodies. Those who can't quite attract the major international bodies, the gambling companies are sweeping up on them. And there's a lot of guys who, in spite of me working in that industry for so long, I see them on a shirt and I've never heard of them. But it's the attraction to the vulnerable in terms of, so you can say, right, there's no advertising. There's this whistle-to-whistle idea now, right, where gambling companies aren't allowed to advertise during a match, whistle-to-whistle. I think it might have been Bet365, I might be wrong. You know, Razor, Gamble Responsibly at Bet365, who got done for having an advert at like 9:01 during half-time of a game very recently.
Right, okay.
But the general idea is no gambling advertising during games. Yeah, as you said, you got the advertising hoardings, and you've got it on players' shirts. There was a study done at the start of this season. I think it might have been over December actually, when Bournemouth played Crystal Palace, the game that was on Amazon Prime on the Tuesday night, and there were nearly 1,000 gambling references during that football match, with both teams sponsored by gambling companies that advertise in hoardings.
Commentary, all that kind of stuff. Less so.
I don't know about that so much. But yeah, so if you want to watch football and you've got a gambling issue, like, it's still there in your face, doesn't really go away. I don't know if if you mentally make that connection when you're watching Bournemouth and you see they've got like Mansion on there. A lot of people won't know who Mansion are. No. Mansion sponsored Spurs in the early noughties. I don't know if people will necessarily make that connection, but those are alarming numbers, and it's going to get looked at in the next year or two. It's going to get discussed in Parliament whether there should be a blanket ban on these companies using shirt sponsorship, like there was with the alcohol companies. You remember people like Holston with Spurs,
I was going to say, like,
with Liverpool.
The shirts that I remember prior to gambling being such a big thing would be Holston on that, Carlsberg on that red Liverpool shirt, and so on and so on. Booze came first. Like, I'm just waiting for weed to be legalized in the UK. Because if we're moving from, because we can smoke it, obviously, if we're moving from addictive substance to addictive substance to addictive substance, alcohol came first and had a real association with football and still does. they're probably just not making as much money as gambling. We've moved on to the gambling companies now. So as soon as weed's legalized, these guys are going to be all over that anyway, like anywhere that we can promote our addictive substance. Yep. So that's what's coming next in the next 5 to 6 years. Be ready for it. Every football club in the Premier League will be sponsored by a weed company.
Before alcohol was obviously tobacco, right?
Yeah,
so I was going to say, even have professional footballers, because back in the day it was commonplace that the big players in the 60s and the 70s did smoke. They would be on like television advertising for Rothmans or B&H or whatever. Exactly.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if we, it's definitely true that because of mobile apps and online gambling, there is more money circulating in the gambling industry right now than ever before. But I mean, the leap from where we were, say, 15 years ago to now is big. But for the people that really wanted to gamble, I don't know if it is that big. I'll tell you why. When I had a season ticket 2004, 5, 6 at Upton Park, part of my brother's match day tradition would be fry up in the morning, couple of pints. I didn't really used to gamble at the bookies. I wouldn't know how, like filling a little slip or whatever. Stop at Ladbrokes bookies, of which there was like 30, 40 people milling around outside because it was busy inside, around the corner from the ground, and then into the ground. But also inside the ground were concessions, and you used to fill in your slip and be able to gamble. Now they've all gone. Then none of them are in the London Stadium. Probably have they been banned, or I don't really know.
They might have. I mean, because if you're a minor, you can't even go into a betting shop, right? So then the idea that
we were 18. 15 years ago, I was over 18.
When you walk around the concourse in a football stadium,
there
shouldn't be betting stands,
right?
Because then the minors can see what's the difference between being in a betting shop and seeing
it wasn't.
Your dad
it was
do that.
Normal 15 years ago, and there'd be a small queue, no different to buying your programs or buying your hot dogs. That gambling was still there. I just think that. It wasn't as obvious because you couldn't place a bet as easily. Someone like me, I'd place a 5. I'd probably place 2 bets a month at best. Sometimes I go 3 months without placing a bet. But I wouldn't do it because it's more effort than it's worth. Whereas with an app, I can just ping it quickly. I know how much I'm going to win off the back of putting down £3 and I'm done.
Yeah, look, the idea of this is not to say that gambling is wrong as such, right? The majority of us will have a bet and be in control and enjoy it. I very rarely bet now. I probably have one large bet on the outright of a major international tournament, for example. Otherwise, I don't get involved anymore. But it was a time, I'm not ashamed to say.
Why is that? Because you think the odds are no good now?
Yeah, it's because I've learned enough about gambling to know that the chance of you making money on it and the chance of the bookies being wrong is highly unlikely. That's a bet of investment that hopefully would last me 3 to 4 weeks and keeps a bit of interest up when England inevitably go out in the last 16 normally, right? Yeah. So, and I would only bet with money that I can afford to lose, but that's not always been the case. I'm not ashamed to say when I was 18, I used the last pound I had to put a football bet on.
Yeah.
It's £1, right? But that was the pound then. That was the difference between a bag of chips and trying to win a tenner, right?
Yeah.
It should only be done if you can enjoy it. The advice in terms of actually gambling, you should only really be betting when you can take advantage of them getting the odds wrong. And it's so rare. I was reading up last night about the Brighton chairman, Tony Bloom, who we know is a famous poker player. Nobody knows what his net worth is. Apparently, he's got an operation in works somewhere around the back of Camden, some iceworks building or something. And nobody knows what goes on there or what the worth is. But apparently, there's like millions of pounds getting turned over every week on Asian handicaps, which is a popular football handicap bet where teams have like a 1-goal start, for example, that kind of thing. And it's all very, very hush-hush. But they reckon, like, in terms of professional gamblers, their margin of what they'll make money-wise in a year is 3-4%. They're looking for the small fractions where bookies will get the odds wrong. How much money you need to invest to make that 3-4%, like an average salary, mate. We're talking like over 500k here in a year.
Yeah. This is interesting. I've looked at, whenever I've looked at sports gambling to try and make any money, I've looked for the 1 to 8, 1 to 10s, where you might think you're not making any money here. What's the point in gambling a tenner for £1? but you do that 10 times and you've doubled your money kind of thing. That's the way to make money in sports gambling, right?
Until one of them loses.
One loses and you've got to win 10 to make up what you've kind of stuck in, right? I've tried this kind of high frequency, low percentage odds. It never really works because one always seems to cock up.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
My recommendation on the accumulator is maximum 6 teams.
Yeah.
5 really, because
I never really do it.
Particularly in our leagues, the unpredictability of results. Look at this season; it's a joke. Just to go back a step, what's interesting about the idea that shirt sponsorship might be deliberated in Parliament, to kind of reference back to who was getting sponsored. If the ban does come into play, there's a potential effect here on clubs. Because I don't know what they're making now money-wise from gambling companies. I don't know if they'll receive that elsewhere from others.
I think they will. My personal opinion is they will, because of the broad reach of football. Football's that big and there's enough companies making money out there. Some of the lower league clubs, lower league, I mean smaller clubs, let's say. All the London clubs, for example, I don't think would have any problems getting sponsorship or revenue in. The likes of Bournemouths and Brightons of the world maybe might struggle to get the same amount of money as they would from a gambling company potentially.
Brighton, I believe, are the only club in the Premier League that has no association with a gambling company. Some clubs, it's not even just the shirt sponsorship. So Leicester City, for example, who we've lauded in terms of the way they're run as a community club, etc. They have 5 different gambling sponsors.
Wow.
Within the club.
What for?
I don't know.
Hoardings.
One outside in the stadium, or one an online partner, a local operator. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they have 5.
That's crazy.
And it's all over the game. I think the issue is the morals. So when I was a kid, so Spurs had Holston on their shirts. So if I wanted a replica shirt, it would get printed without Holston on it.
Right.
And it's still the same now. But the kids aren't stupid. I wasn't stupid then as even like a 7-8-year-old. I wanted to know why. I want the same shirt that my heroes are wearing, etc.
Yeah.
And I think that the moral issue is that to have a shirt sponsor, it should be an endorsement. So if Bournemouth, for example, have Mansion on their shirt, if you're a Bournemouth fan, it should be an endorsement. Okay, that gambling company is good. They're reliable. They're trustworthy. There's no gambling company out there that's trustworthy or reliable. If you're taking too much money off them, they'll shut you down. It's as simple as that. That's why the big players, they're using like offshore accounts, like Asian handicap, stuff like that, because UK betting companies are just not taking the money, mate. It's difficult enough to get like £100 bet on with most of these guys now. If you go down the bookies and go, you know something about League One, for example, I'm going to smash £100 on Coventry City this week, and you're in London or something. They're going to go, what are you doing that for? You'd be suspicious, mate. They'll be on the phone straight away going, I've got this guy and he's putting £100 on Coventry. You all right taking that?
Yeah.
Like, so these companies, that's why they're not going bust at the moment. We won't take the chance. If they think they're getting done over, they just go, no thanks. Yeah, all right, you can have that for a tenner or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the influence. You might think, surely you're not that way vulnerable, if you will, to actually believe that what's on a shirt sponsorship means that company X is reliable. But people do think that. You associate.
I think you're right. They do.
You associate with what the club that you love is doing, right? I think that's normal. I don't know if like there's more Man United fans driving Chevrolets now. I don't know if they can afford it. I don't know, but there is certainly an influence, and the influence on not having the gambling company on the child shirt makes no difference, because the posters in his bedroom are still going to have the betting company.
Yeah, I mean, it's lip service, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, yeah. So I think that there's pressure coming now. We had this incident with the FA Cup third round games where, and I wasn't even aware of this till it was been and gone, but Bet365 had all of the non-3 PM FA Cup games. And it starts to make sense why we got some games kicking off at 12:30 and 5:30, etc., and not televised. But to have an account, to watch one of the games, you had to either have money deposited in their account, I believe, within the 7 days previous.
Right.
So it's not like, Bet365 are putting this service on, there's a free football game. No, you've got to deposit money into our account. I think it was minimum £30 or something. And then you can't just withdraw the money.
No.
They'll say, no, we're going to keep your money. You have to gamble that money.
Yeah.
And it's been scrapped since then. And it wasn't.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Really,
of course it is.
It's a bit ridiculous to be going down that road with gambling. Something to definitely keep an eye on, right, over the next coming couple of years. What does happen with gambling? The one thing I'm not worried about is whether or not there'll still be money flooding into football from the next big thing. And it's probably not going to be weed legalization in the UK, but
no,
there's plenty of companies that will want to jump onto sports sponsorship, and the Premier League being as big as it is. Car companies and alcohol companies have always been there. I was thinking about electronics companies. I mean, we had Rumbelows. They've gone bust. Liverpool used to have Candy. They used to make TVs, didn't they? Candy.
Arsenal, JVC.
They're all gone. Yeah. JVC still exists, but Candy is gone.
Yeah.
So maybe electronics and football's not the perfect match, because you'll end up out of business. But look, the likes of Amazon will flood money in.
Mate, eventually it might even be like YouTubers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
no,
it could be really interesting what actually does happen.
KSI on like a football shirt.
He'd be mad. Who does he even support? Does he support anyone?
I wouldn't have a clue.
I'm going to try and find out. Clue.
Just before we kind of finish up, just a couple of things to kind of highlight gambling companies in terms of how clever they're getting with some of their sponsorships. So you remember what happened with Huddersfield Town in the summer?
Yes, Paddy Power.
So Huddersfield Town rocked up with this fake shirt that they kept the lie going for about 3 or 4 days, where they had this massive slash of Paddy Power. And what's interesting about it is obviously the initiative is to like keep sponsorship actually off football shirts.
Yeah.
So it spins the gambling sponsorship into a positive. Everybody knows, even though they're not on the shirt, that Paddy Power sponsor Huddersfield because it was such a promotional campaign.
Yeah.
And at the time we went, oh, that's clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then you get...
But Paddy Power are the best gambling marketeers.
Well, they're a company that works to a very, very low margin. So they're quite happy to take more of the gamble and the risk. And they've got all of their energy and essentially turnover comes from when some of the bigger players like Ladbrokes, Coral and William Hill were standing still with their advertising. Yeah. Paddy Power really pushed hard. And so it really attracted, to be honest, the younger player as well. 32 Red are who sponsor Derby County. Now, Derby County are potentially in trouble at the moment because of exceeding FFP. And one of the reasons behind that is this potential move for Wayne Rooney. Yep. Not only do they reckon that the betting company essentially is funding Wayne Rooney's transfer to Derby County, but he's also, well, guess what shirt number he's wearing? 32.
Right.
So, I mean, that leaves a sour taste in the mouth. It just doesn't feel right at all. And the other one I wanted to just speak on briefly, and it's a good one to sum up on, is Joey Barton got an 18-month ban a couple of years ago for bets that had been dating back like 12 years. His average stake was 150 odd quid. There were some bets were like £5, some that were like 500. There were quite a number of bets on football, but there were bets on many other sports as well. Essentially, what Barton used to do was he'd be like in a hotel for an away game on a Friday night, and he would say himself that, I mean, we've considered him a nutter, really. We at certain stage, some of the things he's done, the cigar and the eye incident. Yeah. But he fancies himself as quite a sophisticated and
intellectual.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, man. And he said, like, the gambling thing, like, he didn't find it so much of an addiction, but like it was a release that almost stopped him from going to the other vices like drinking, etc. He said before his ban appealed that he reckoned that what he got done for, he was stupid because he had the account in his own name, etc. He reckoned over half the Premier League were doing exactly what he was doing every week.
Wow.
What he also said was that in terms of the ban he got, which I think it got reduced to 11 or 12 months, I believe. The argument he was trying to make in terms of it being double standards was the idea that, like, how could you ban him from... And there was no case of, like, fixing matches or anything like that. Quite often he was betting on other teams, other sports, as I said. Nothing was questioning his integrity.
No, right.
But his case was, like, it would be asking, like, a recovering alcoholic to just go and spend all day recovering in a pub. Because essentially you're saying, right, footballers can't bet, but you're surrounding them mid-game by all this advertising on the hoardings, on the shirts, etc. Exactly what we've talked about.
And it's a fair point.
And football has a massive double standards issue with gambling at the moment. And I think that legally, in a couple of years, it might get outlawed. And I think for society in this country, that's not going to be a bad thing.
No, I agree with you on that. Look, the way tobacco is sold now behind closed doors where they're shutting everything off and stuff, I don't think we're scared to accept that actually something might be bad and shut it out. And taking it out of football, it wouldn't bother me either way. I couldn't care less really whether it's there or not. I know where I need to go if I want to place a bet, and that's it.
The advertising is not going to stop the big players on the Asian handicaps and the stuff like that. It might protect future generations.
There we go. A little rundown for you on Monday morning about a very serious topic in terms of gambling in football. We have coming at you this week all of our usual shows. Tomorrow, Tottenham FA Cup special.
Rewind.
Yep. We have on Wednesday Sky Fantasy Football.
Rewind.
I'm not.
All right, carry on. I'll do it at the end.
Okay. We have on Thursday Clash of the Correspondents. Who do we have on this week?
FPL Footballer, FPL Badger, Newcastle v Norwich.
Going to be an interesting game this week. Big game for Norwich. And Newcastle really could get some daylight between them and the relegation zone. So that'll be a big old game. And Friday, the final plan.
Yes.
Before we do.
No feature main podcast this week. Suj and I will be live streaming 8 to 10 p.m. UK time during Bournemouth v Arsenal tonight. There is a lot on the agenda. The things that we haven't discussed that were in the people's poll vote for certain. We'll talk a little bit of West Ham, West Brom, Tottenham at Southampton.
A little bit.
And very importantly, we will have information from the FA Cup 5th round draw.
Yes.
And we'll start doing a little bit of planning and mapping for blanks and potential doubles. We'll go through some of those permutations this evening on that stream. Just before we finish, if anybody has been influenced by or is suffering with gambling issues, etc., generally I've got a long background in the industry. My DMs are always open.
I do recommend reaching out to James if you want any kind of advice or pointing in the right direction with that. Thank you for tuning in this Monday morning. Do share the podcast with all of your FPL football loving friends, family, pets, whatever it may be.
Okay.
And hit the like button, subscribe, get the notifications going. Leave any comments on any thoughts on this show because it was a thoughtful one. And that's it, really. We'll be back later
tonight.
This evening. Indeed. Ciao for now.
Cue music, man, child.
Messi, ancora 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 Messi.